Okay, it's 10:02. Okay, I'm going to get started, and hopefully a couple more people join in. I know you can pop in and out as we go. So I hope you can see my screen clearly. Just tell me if is it very small, or can you see what's on here? My angle, it's pretty small, so I just want to make sure you can see this. Right, thanks. You can make it full screen. Okay, great. So welcome. I am in New York City. My name is Godwin Morris, and I run a makerspace STEM education program in Manhattan on the Upper West Side near West 107th Street. Anybody coming into New York or want to come visit, I would be thrilled to meet with you. I have 2 physical spaces. I am not in a school specifically. I'm in 2 storefronts, but I work with schools. In fact, we work exclusively with students and schools and teachers. So I have 2 spaces. One is called Dazzling Discoveries, which is a classroom space. And the other is Skill Mill NYC, which is a makerspace. And that means we have all the equipment you might be familiar with that would be in a makerspace, laser cutter, 3D printers. We have sewing machines, we have vinyl cutters and all of that. So we have school groups that come to visit us. We run camp programs when school is closed, so students come to us. And we have the K-5 kids in the Dazzling Discovery space, and we have middle school and high school kids at our Skill Mill space. We run camp days when schools are closed all year. So next Monday, we'll be running camp days. And then we run a lot of after school classes. And then we have kids who come to our space, and then we go to the schools. I have been working with kids for 20 plus years, the same way many of you have. We work with between 300 and 400 kids a week. And so there's a lot of opportunity to test and try things. So over the years, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I created 2 products. One is a cardboard engineering kit called Dazzlinks, and I produce it at a factory. I sell it. It's not on Amazon. It's just something that I created, and people hear about it from these sessions, and teachers buy it. It's not really sold to the general public. It's cardboard pieces and shapes and beams with holes in it, go together with brads and dowels. It's a great school product. The other thing I've developed over the years is something that we call engineering with paper. And many people refer to it as paper engineering, which is sort of the generic term, but our actual name for our product line is engineering with paper. And it is a series of downloadable instruction pages about how to make anything out of paper, tape, and scissors. I'm going to focus on that today. We have many free downloadable projects, and that's how I'm going to tie that into CAD design. So my contact information is on the screen. During the pandemic, the New York Times was running projects every week about how to make things out of newspapers, and we contacted them, and they loved our projects and published over a period of about a year and a half. They published 4 of our projects. So I am an official New York Times published author. So let me tell you what the concept is behind our engineering with paper methodology. I'm sure many of you are aware that there are thousands of STEM challenges out there. You can find them on all kinds of websites. Most of them assume one of 2 things. Either that you're only working with one child. They don't tend to be focused on how to manage something with a group of kids. But they also don't focus on the materials or how to get started. They just assume you'll figure it out. And we have found that that's not really true, and more important, that it's not quick, and teachers don't have a lot of time. So we have a suggestion of how to approach that differently. when you have a challenge, most students will approach it with a little bit of curiosity. Some students will not approach it at all because they don't know how to get started. And some students will come in with prior knowledge. So you're not getting an even playing field, or you're not getting a level playing field, as we call it. You're getting a variety of kids who know how to approach a problem. So we approached it by saying, how can we best prepare all students to approach projects and challenges? We call it leveling the playing field. Begin with core skills. So our engineering with paper methodology focuses on basic shapes made with paper, and I'm going to show you how to do all of that. And we suggest that you teach all the students how to make some basic shapes. It's very similar to wooden blocks that you would have in a classroom, but you're making them out of paper, and then the kids can use them as parts in their projects. Here's a quick image of what I mean. So we suggest taking simple supplies, paper, tape, and scissors, and then learning how to fold them into specific shapes. And the shapes are versatile and also universal in that the paper tray that you can see in this picture can be used in a large scale as the base of something. It can be used on an 1/8 of a page sheet, and then it becomes a refrigerator or a bed or a tabletop or a bookcase. And that's the point of this, that I'm going to show you a way to take all of these basic shapes, how to make them, and then how to use them. And then that same concept, and anyone who has used Tinkercad knows that it is all about shapes, and much of CAD is all about using shapes and rearranging them. If you have your students make things out of paper first, it helps them understand how to translate that into three-dimensional digital design. So here's an overview of what we call our alphabet of shapes. And when you look at this picture, you can see that certain shapes are repeated over and over and used in different ways. So that paper tray that I just mentioned is in the vehicle. At the top of the page, it's the roof and the floor in the home project. At the bottom of the page, in the cityscape project, it's the base. The paper track shape is used in the simple machines, in the bridges, in the ramps, in the roller coaster. The idea is we're going to talk about basic shapes and then use them in many different ways. Here's just an overview of different ways the engineering with paper methodology can be applied to any classroom or any topic. So all of our projects require paper, tape, and scissors. We recommend masking tape. Markers are great because kids love to add color or make signs or adapt things in their own way, but it's paper, tape, and scissors. Everything is designed to work with copy paper, but many of the projects are a little sturdier if you use a heavier weight paper, a manila folder, quality paper, cover stock paper. Many of the projects are a little bit sturdier if you use that. But everything was designed to be made with copy paper because our goal was to make this as simple and accessible as possible. Inexpensive. You can use recycled paper. You can use magazines or catalog pages. You do not have to buy anything to make these projects. This is an overview of many of our bundles or the projects that we've developed. There are instruction packets on all of these and more. And I'm going to go through and show you what those look like. And again, you can see the shapes repeating over and over throughout these. So I'm going to show you some examples of a paper maze. It's a ramp. This is the roller coaster. It's a balance beam. There's a car. This Ferris wheel uses again, that same paper tray shape that I mentioned earlier. It's in the bottom, and it's the seats. Creature. So the point of this session is to talk about CAD and how to integrate these two together. And so I just showed you a whole variety of shapes made out of paper. And just put in the chat, do you know Tinkercad? Have you used it? It just helps me to know. So this is one of the opening screens from Tinkercad. And when we teach Tinkercad in our program, it's all, we only let the kids use the shapes. We don't let them download anything that's already been designed, because obviously our goal is for them to learn how to use it. So we find that by having them make projects out of paper first and then going to Tinkercad, helps them focus and understand things from 3 dimensions, because now they've had their paper project. And then we go and try to make the similar projects using Tinkercad and all of its shapes. So here's an example of some projects that we've used with Tinkercad, and we had the kids make them first, and I'll show you some combinations. So these are obviously little houses. We actually put magnets under the cars and had the kids make magnetic, so the car could drive. And here's a more thorough example of that project. And again, we break things down into shapes the same way Tinkercad does, and we have the kids bring them over. These are just examples of some Tinkercad projects that we've made. Tiny tip, I don't know what you might be doing with your plastic, but we use permanent markers. We don't use paint. I've seen a lot of projects where people paint their 3D printed object, but in a classroom, it's just too unwieldy. So we find that permanent markers are the best way for kids to color their projects. And in our center, we've started using just white as the filament and then let the kids color it themselves. So here's an example of where we combine our engineering with paper with Tinkercad. The students will design a vehicle or an animal and then build with paper the environment around it. So obviously this is an airport, and you can see our shapes are very similar. I'm going to come back to how to make things out of paper. I just want you to see these examples. That's a helicopter. And here's an environment. And again, that same paper tray that I mentioned at the beginning becomes makes an excellent diorama format with a little 3D printed unicorn, I think, is in this. And you can see the bed in this picture is also a paper tray. So again, the concept behind our engineering with paper is taking some basic shapes, learning how to make them, and then using them in different sizes and different ways. Students build a paper model and then incorporate the ideas from that into a Tinkercad project, or the other way around, where they make a Tinkercad 3D printed object and then build a world out of paper for that object. This is an example of a student who made a cardboard project. It really wasn't anything in particular. He was really just kind of playing around and sticking things together. But then he took that and tried to copy that in Tinkercad. And obviously the sizes are dramatically different, but this cardboard piece was, as big as I am. So the Tinkercad piece was about the size of his hand. We tend to, in our center, we have a 15 or 20-minute print rule. So everything you make has to print in that time frame. It keeps the size down, and mostly it keeps the time so that we can do multiple student projects. We tell the students that in advance, and then they learn about scaling. Okay, so, oops. So again, I don't know, nobody's responded in the chat about whether or not you know Tinkercad. But Tinkercad has a new feature called a sim lab, where instead of designing something for 3D printing, you can design something that will be interactive. I'm going to see if I can get this to print. Yeah, no, it's not going to work. So have you used SimLab? Because the SimLab is a relatively new feature. You create an obstacle course or a Rube Goldberg type machine or something that can respond to gravity is the best way to describe it. So as if you were building something on a table, you can interact with it, drop the ball. So this is an example of the students making a paper roller coaster and then making a Tinkercad roller coaster. So you would put a ball up at the top here in Tinkercad and then click go, and the ball will actually move and run through this and then knock over the dominoes at the bottom. And it's an amazing feature that Tinkercad has added recently. So I highly recommend checking out the SimLab program. And for our purposes, usually when we do work with kids, we have them make things out of paper first. And this is the one situation where we've been finding that doing the SimLab first helps, because they understand the motion and the reactions, and then they go and build it through their own paper and cardboard version of it, because they've learned the concepts from using SimLab first. So in this situation, the Tinkercad design is more helpful than doing the paper version first. So as I said, our projects are all designed with some basic shapes, and I want to show you how to use some of them. And hopefully you'll make some shapes with me. These two simple shapes of a track and a cylinder, and a track is a strip of paper with the edges folded up. And in fact, if you have a piece of paper, you know that usually paper is very floppy, but when you fold up the edges of a piece of paper, it changes the dynamics of it, and it is no longer floppy. So I'm actually going to take that same piece I just showed you, fold up the sides right now, and just show you the difference. It will be, you will get a horizontal plane by just folding up the edges, making a simple track. It makes the paper stronger. So we use these two shapes to make a whole variety of projects: simple machines, catapult, slide, a seesaw, roller coaster, the bridge. And here's a version of those same shapes that you can make them in Tinkercad. Again, I don't know how much you know Tinkercad, but it uses basic blocks, and then you use a hole, H-O-L-E shape, to make negative space. So that's what this is showing. So the section that has the lines in it is the hole, and so you would make a track in that way. So I'm going to show you how to make a specific project. If you have some paper tape and scissors, please either go get it or have it ready. And I'm going to show you how to make a catapult. We have several free projects on our website. Catapult is one of them. So you can see the catapult in this picture. The challenge here is we make this catapult out of a single sheet of paper. And so sometimes when I start this with students, I just give them a single piece of paper and say, what would you do and how would you make this? I would do that with high school kids. But with the younger kids, we go through explaining how to make this. And what you're seeing here are 2 sheets of paper because the catapult itself is made from one single sheet of paper and the target is made from a separate sheet. And again, this is a free download. I'm going to show you how to make it, but you can go to our website and get it. There are several projects that are free on the website. So before we start any project, we pre-cut the tape. So for the kindergartners, first, second graders, we will often do this in advance for them. And I will put the tape pieces on the back of plastic bowls, or sometimes I take a chair in the room and just put tape all over the chair or benches, sometimes on the edges of the table. The kids can also do this themselves. You can give them a strip of tape and a scissor and have them cut it for themselves. Depends how old they are. Certainly second grade and up can usually do that. You want these small pieces of tape in advance, because if you try to rip or cut tape while you're also holding the paper, it doesn't work. You don't have that third hand. So preparing the tape in advance. So here's our single page. This is our how to make a catapult page. This is what our pages look like. So I'm going to back up and go through that. So in this project, I'm going to show you this video. This one might actually be using 2 sheets of paper, but all you need is to take a single sheet of paper. And before I show you this video, let me stop sharing. Okay. Take a single sheet of paper. Okay. Take a single sheet of paper. So when we talk about paper, we talk about long edges and short edges. I know sometimes people do some hot dog hamburger. We don't do any of that because we don't know what our students know. And so we like to focus on what they can see rather than referencing anything else. So we always talk about our paper as having sides and edges. And the paper has short edges and longer edges. And in this case, you're going to take your piece of paper and fold it in half so that you know where the middle is. And then you're going to cut it in half. And now you have 2 pieces of paper. And once you have these 2 pieces of paper, you can use them separately. And so if you're following along, I'm just going to make this here. Again, longer, shorter. So as I showed you earlier, paper is very floppy and you want to make it stiffer and stronger. And so we're going to start by making the track by taking this piece of paper and folding this edge over to this edge. So we're going to fold it in half. And then this is great motor skill practice for the kids. But one thing we find a lot is kids they just don't understand how to press that folded edge. So that's something to practice with them. And now you have this double shaped piece. And then I'm going to do it in the air, but it's much easier to do it on the table. You're going to fold over the edges. And again, you'll see it's still pretty floppy, but I'm just going to put it down and fold up the edges. So that's one, and already it's stiffer. And when you fold over that second edge, it's really impressive. We do this as part of a bridge project. And before they fold it, we have the kids try to pile something on it, and it collapses. And as soon as they do this, it will hold 10, 20 times the weight. We have little blocks, they pile up, and it's just impressive how just by folding the paper, you get a different dynamic. And again, the point of this is to teach children how to make the components of projects they might want to build with. And if you teach them how to make things out of paper and then take them to Tinkercad, they have a better understanding of what they're trying to accomplish. So this is the arm of your catapult. And then you take your second sheet of paper and you roll this up into a you roll this up into a cylinder. And if you have tape, and in this case, I'm actually going to use some Scotch tape. Oops. So we recommend putting the tape on first, as you can see, and then rolling it. It just makes it a little bit easier. So now you can make a fulcrum, and you can make this in any size you want. So you can test it. You can actually have the kids try different widths and see what works. I'm going to make this one a little bit tighter. And again, this is how to make a catapult out of a single sheet of paper. And again, this is a free download on our website. So then you take this and this, you make it cross perpendicular pieces, oops, I'm in front of my face, and tape them together. So just take some tape and stick it on the back. I usually put it on as wings like that, and then attach it. And we have videos of this as well. Oops. And then that will stick to this. Is anybody following along, trying this out? Remember, I can't see you. I usually like to do these workshops where I can see you and it's a little more interactive. Great, thank you. So now you've got a catapult. There are a couple more steps to this, so I'm going to show you what we do next. So if you put this on a table or a surface, I'll put it on my notebook so you can see it. You will know that that it tips down. So you can take another piece of paper and make make a ball. We always make balls out of scrap paper, but I'll show you a simple way. Sometimes we just cut a little bit off the end of the catapult, and that gives you a little piece of paper that you can crumple up into a ball, and then put that on your catapult and see what happens. And I've done this before, so I know what happens. But you want to tap this end. But sometimes the scrap falls off, or it's just hard to place it. But more important, when you have your catapult just like this, when you get it to launch, it will go vertically, and you can't really aim it very well. So part of this lesson is to show kids how you can change the trajectory of the catapult by cutting another piece off the end. And instead of crumpling this piece, you're going to take this piece and curl it into another cylinder. So again, we repeat the same shapes over and over and over. So now you have another cylinder, and you want to size this one so that you can fit it into the end of the catapult. Most important at this point is check your catapult, because you want this cylinder to be on the end of the catapult that is touching the table, because it's going to hold the ball in place. And by making this container, again, out of a cylinder, so now you have two different cylinders and you're working with shapes. And I know the concept of shapes is often in a kindergarten classroom, but it's really, really important that it works for older kids too, particularly if they're going to be using it to do digital design, because they have to understand that shapes can come in different sizes. Surprisingly surprising to me sometimes how that isn't obvious, but it isn't. So that's why we're teaching it to them. So then that cylinder will fit in, and then you want to put some tape on the sides to hold it in place. You put tape on both sides and then put the ball in there. And you will notice immediately that when you hit the catapult, the ball will now follow along because it stays, this cup keeps the ball in place longer. And so the catapult, it leaves the catapult at a different angle. It's really great for math and science if you want to incorporate that. That was partly how we designed this. The CAD design piece of it is just another use, but most of our work is with science and engineering classes. And so the catapult is just a great model. So I don't know if you had thought about it before I showed you this, but is this how you might have come up with a catapult out of a single sheet of paper? It's always interesting to me what people might think of. So there we go. So did that work? Did anybody try that? Remember, I can't see you, so you have to let me know in the chat. I promise you that this is in a classroom, easy to do, great fun. It works with 12th graders and first graders. Everybody loves to make something fly. We teach them how to use basic shapes. And then take these same shapes and make other projects, or move to Tinkercad back for that. Any questions at this point? I'm just trying to go to my my screen, which is on my side here. Yes, it works. Yeah, I mean, in my experience, it works with kids of all ages. So do it slowly. So the next part of this is having them make their own targets to go with it. And here's my share screen again. So let me show you what we do next. So again, this concept of repeating shapes, you don't realize that they're repeating until you start to play with them. So in addition to making the catapult, and actually before you even finish the catapult, you can make the targets. Sometimes they get a little crazed by making and having these little pieces of paper flying all over the room. So sometimes it depends on the group. Christy said she has a challenging group, so you might want them to make the targets before they finish the catapult. This is the same shapes, cylinder and track. The track is wider, the edges are shorter, but it's the same concept. It keeps that backboard from bending. It's just the idea of shapes. And they can make their own targets. Certainly the older kids get very creative about making targets. And then another challenge that I give students and to teachers is, once you've made this target and you have your catapult, how would you adapt your target so that the ball can come back to you? And so I'll let you think about that one for just a minute. We do have one really simple way you can do that is when you have this catapult, if you turn it this way so the tipped edge is away and then hit it towards you, it will come back to you. So if you aim the target, if you become the target, or you aim the catapult at yourself, so kids can actually play catch. And I find that's quite entertaining. But if you were going to make something to attach to your target itself, how would you do that? So here's a picture of our finished projects. And then here's one example of how you could make a version of this where the ball comes back to you. And again, it's still the same shapes. We've just added a second track. That's all. But I've had a lot of other clever ideas. Kids have come up with, teachers have come up with. It's for the older kids, it's a good additional challenge, depending on how much time you want to spend on this. So again, these are basic shapes. They can be made with paper very easily. It's inexpensive. It's use supplies you already have. You can use any kind of paper. And once they start building with paper shapes, it's much easier for them to understand how to do the same thing in Tinkercad or any other CAD designs. I'm sorry, the CAD programs that you might use. This is my contact information, and I'm going to show you some other projects in a minute, but I just want to check in and see if anybody has any questions, or if you have a particular project or challenge that you're working on. Tell me. I work particularly well if I have a little bit of interaction and I can respond to some things that you're trying to accomplish. This is our Instagram. I highly recommend following us on Instagram for Engineering with Paper and Dazzling Discoveries. That's where you'll see a lot of our projects. Our website is Dazzling Discoveries. We also have a Facebook group, and that's where we show a lot of the projects that we make. And this is obviously me and Paula, my assistant director. And these are just, again, a whole variety of our projects. So let's see what I'll show you. This is our Dazzlinks, our cardboard engineering kit. And okay, great. Oh, great, Christy. Thanks. It's good to know that you've used our projects. I'll explain. So again, this project uses the tracks, and it's using a rectangular prism in the middle rather than the cylinder, but you can make this with both. So we created these projects in two formats. One is what we call technique pages, which is just how to make all of the shapes. And it depends on how much time you have. We definitely like to have the kids make sample shapes. Take 8.5 by 11 white paper, construction paper, anything you want, cut it up into at least quarter sheets and have them practice making some of the shapes. But usually they want to be working towards a project. So just making random shapes doesn't usually engage them unless you want them to have a pile of shapes, which I have also done. So the technique pages show them how to make specific shapes, but are not necessarily attached to any project. And then we have a whole selection of projects that then use the shape. So in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see the technique pages are listed, and those will show you how to make all of the shapes. I'm going to show you how to make some of them here, but usually teachers have a theme or a project or an objective they're aiming for. And so, yes, make some shapes, practice, and then remake them with better paper when you're actually going to build something. So does anybody have a preference? I can show you how to make any of these. Oops, I just have, my paper wound up a little further away than it should have been. So I'm going to show you a few techniques. So I'm just going to show you quickly. So that's our Dazzlinks. That's our cardboard engineering. That's you just build with that. And again, here are some of the projects that you can do. So let me put put that on. I'm going to stop sharing and just show you a few techniques. Okay, so somebody put in the comment about working backwards. Yes, they love getting to explore. So when one of the things that I find very helpful is we actually have what we call a paper cutting guide, and that's on our website. But the idea is that the kids don't need a full sheet of paper. So I have a paper cutter, so it helps, but they can do it themselves. Cutting the paper into smaller pieces makes the project smaller, makes the whole, the whole tabletop more manageable. So we pre-cut paper. So there are different sizes that obviously you can do different sizes. So paper folded in half, and then paper folded, and I have the kids do this too, and then fold the paper in half this way, and then cut this up. And then you have quarter sheets. And quarter sheets are much easier to deal with. And in some cases, we will fold the same paper again, and then we get 1/8 sheets and 16th sheets. And when they're making smaller parts, so in my studio, we actually have a rack that we built out of cardboard with different size piles of paper in different sizes, and we keep it that way so the students know they can go and get whatever size they think they need. And I'm going to show you how to make some of our shapes with just these basic shapes, with just some smaller pieces. And you'll find it's easier to work with. So one of our very popular shapes is what we call a rectangular prism. So if you take a piece of paper, longer edges, shorter edges, and you fold it in half like that, and then open it up and fold these side edges just into the middle. And in Tinkercad, this is probably the most common shape that we use, is that basic rectangle that they have. And so this is particularly useful. So now you have what we call cabinet doors. And you put a piece of tape right down the middle of that to close the doors. And this is the same language that I use with students. So you're just putting a piece of tape. And then this will pop open into a rectangular prism. So it seems so simple when I show it to you, but it's not that intuitive. But this shape is so inspiring, and the kids love to make it, and they can all make it. It's easy. Sometimes they overlap the panel pieces a little bit too much, and it doesn't fold right. But once you open it up and you just recrease it, it will work. So what I do with students is I have everybody just make this shape, and then we talk about it. What is this? What does this make you think of? Anybody want to try in the chat? What would you say this would remind you of if you were going to build something with this shape? Let's see if I can get some feedback here. Table legs, skyscraper. So we definitely get that this could be a building. I had some kids tell me it's an elevator. Some kids tell me it's a rocket ship. And then you can take the same shape and turn it sideways. So then it becomes a tunnel, or I'm in New York City, a subway car or a regular car. And so that's the idea. That this same shape, this direction could be a refrigerator if you were building a house. It can be a bench if it's this way. In fact, we do that where this is actually a bench that we use, and then you just I'm just taking a flat piece of paper and put it behind it, and suddenly you can see how it can become a bench. And so the same simple shape can be used in many ways. And in fact, this same shape can be put inside, my colors are the same here, but it can be put inside a card cover, and it becomes a pop-up card. So if you tape this in at the back and the bottom, and then put another piece of paper in front of it, well, I only have little pieces of yellow, that kids draw on, this becomes a pop-up card. So I hope you see the idea here of using all of these shapes in different ways. And again, this is a very common shape in Tinkercad. I'm going to show you, we have a couple more minutes. I'll show you how to make that paper tray, because that would be the other shape that's quite useful to know how to do. So a rectangular prism, a cylinder, a track, and a paper tray, you can make almost all of the projects that we have and many others. So a paper tray, again, I'm using a very small piece. Actually, I'm going to do it with a bigger sheet just so you can see what I'm doing. But it works in all sizes. And again, a small paper tray becomes a bed. I showed you that earlier. A bed, a refrigerator, a bookcase, all different sizes. And a full sheet of paper becomes the base of a project. So here's how we do the paper tray. Fold all of 4 edges over, and it depends what you're building. Sometimes you need a higher wall, sometimes a little bit smaller, but generally it's about an inch. And just fold over all 4 sides. I'm just doing this quickly. I actually have one already made. So fold over all 4 sides and try, if you can, get them to be even. And the students can do this. Kindergartners have a little trouble. And as I mentioned, you definitely have to teach your students. And I find that the middle school kids really have trouble with this. For some reason, they just don't have a lot of experience with fine-tuning their projects. So we go over the creasing a lot. But here's the basic folds. And then you open up the whole thing, and you can see that there are crease lines. And what I do, particularly for the first time that we're doing this, and I'm going to draw it on here for you also, is I mark for the students where to cut, because all you have to do is make 4 quick cuts. So hopefully you can see this. So the lines are parallel. Right by my fingers, that fold line. If you cut those 4 parallel spots, and honestly, if you did it this way, it also works as long as they're parallel. As long as this and this and this and this are the same, it doesn't matter which corner you use, but then you just cut. I'm just cutting. Whoops. And suddenly you've released these little tabs, and you would do it on all 4 sides if you're building a full tray. And then you'll see that these sides will fold up. And suddenly you have a tray where you would have had. Now this side I left open. Sometimes we do that. It depends what we're doing. But if I cut the same thing and tape up the 4 sides. So you can see that pretty clearly. And that's a paper tray. And it's, again, same concept to build. Now we use this large full sheet version to build the city. So then you can take your rectangular prism pieces, on the camera, it's hard. I think you can see it. And you can start to build a city, or you can build a playground, or you can build a habitat, or you can build, we use this for a maze project, the same shape. And the kids build a maze in here. We use this shape endlessly. And once we teach it to the kids, they usually know it. We'll just say, make a paper tray, and they know what to do. And then they go on from there. Or we'll say, once the kids start doing this, we'll say, what shapes do you think would be helpful? We build a lot of architecture structures, and so we often have kids doing something in houses. The last thing I'm going to show you is what we call our paper straws. This is, again, I can show you how to roll these. We have a particular technique we recommend for rolling paper into paper straws, but I recommend this for upper elementary, middle school, and high school. I do it at home a lot with my old magazines. When I have 10 minutes and I'm waiting, I have these ready, and I roll them into paper straws around a pencil. If you have dowels, 1/4-inch dowels, that's good too. But but using pencils is great. If you can find the round pencils rather than the, what is it, octagonal pencils, it helps. And you roll the paper and you seal them. And then I have kids make a lot of these, and then we connect them with paper clips. So I could explain. Okay, my shirt is black, so you might be able to see this. It's a little hard to explain. So we have a packet that explains how to make paper straws, how to connect them, either with paper clip or just with tape. But I find this to be an incredibly inspiring building material. We have kids make them and then put them all in one box, so they're not keeping their own paper straws. Some kids are better at this than others, and so I will go and pull out the ones that didn't come out so well. And we just make a big box of it, and then whenever they want to use them, they can. So that is, I'm trying to think what else is helpful. Let me know. We have a few more minutes left in this session. And again, this is all making things out of paper, tape, and scissors, with the idea of then using it to explore Tinkercad. And I didn't go into Tinkercad very much in terms of a tutorial, because you can find that on Tinkercad. They have wonderful tutorials. There are amazing videos available. So I didn't think you needed me to show you how to do Tinkercad, but it seemed to me it might be more helpful for me to show you how to make things out of paper, and then you can see the connection to either Tinkercad or Onshape, or those are the two that I know people use the most often in K-12 schools. So are there any questions, comments? Let me know. I'm going to put, you're making some straws with your leftover tape. Yes, it's great. Here, let me put this picture back up. So if you can see this, now that I've gone through all of this, this picture should make more sense to you. You can see over here in our playground project, we have the straws. You can make almost anything with the paper straws, and they can connect to each other. You can make them in 3 dimensions. I've got the, let's see, so the track is in the roller coaster. The roller coaster is a great project. I know there are other people who they're very specific printouts. It's not what we do. None of our stuff are templates. Everything is downloadable instruction sheets about how to make the shapes, and then you use the shapes, or the kids use the shapes their own way. We're trying to get away from having to make a million copies, so you can take a pile of paper you already have, just print out the basic guideline sheets, and let the kids make their own shapes from paper you already have. That is the real goal here. What else is helpful? Cityscape, roller coaster, or the gravity. Oh, if you still have, we do a balance project with the same track piece. Let's see what else. Let's see what I have. I usually have some other pictures. So this is what the technique pages look like. They're all very step-by-step. Everything we do is very specific instructions. I'll go backwards through this and get you my contact page again. There we go. And yes, please follow us, get in touch with me. Go to our website, dazzlingdiscoveries.com. As I said, there are many free downloadable projects on the Engineering with Paper tab. We do workshops like this all the time. I'm trying to, we've got about 5 more minutes. Any other questions or suggestions? I'm just going to scroll backwards through some of this, so just so you can see again what you can make and how to make it. I think we have a video of our how to make the catapult. There's that Tinkercad again from these 2 shapes. And again, I strongly recommend playing with SimLab if you have not already done that. Yes, it's great to make to show them they don't have to be perfect. We do find printing out the technique pages and putting them in plastic sleeves, sheet protectors, and then putting them on a table and letting the kids look at them. That works well. One for every 2 kids is great, but one for every 3 kids works also. And letting them see if they can figure it out from following the steps. And the steps, again, are mostly, there's 2 kinds of steps. The technique pages, which show you how to make all the shapes, and then these project pages that we have. And again, here is the paper tray. This is made out of a cover stock paper. This is 1 sheet of paper cut in half. So you make two paper trays, and then they nest together. And it's just a wonderful format. You don't have to know you don't need a project for it. If you're working on something with the students, they create this and then they suddenly have that sort of stage or diorama. You don't need a shoebox, and they can build inside of that. We also have a paper corner that I can, that's a little late, that it's a free download on our website. And again, this is just how we integrated the 3D printing with our engineering with paper. And now that I've shown you some of these, you can see this is a paper tray right here. This is a paper tray underneath. It's a paper tray at the bottom. These walls, the supports are just a strip of paper folded in half. It's a cylinder. It's a rectangular prism. And look, we got a whole airport out of that. So that seems like a good way to close this session. If you have any other questions, you can get in touch with me, dazzlingdiscoveries.com. My email is on that website. And thank you so much for watching.